Welcome to another episode of the Karate Guys.
Oof.
I'm Ricky Trammell, and this is
Patrick Sagabo.
And today we have a local fighter here in Atlanta. His name is John Vaughn. And let me tell you how I met John. I met John several years ago at a judo, in judo. We both trained at the boys club, and Sensei Leo White was there, is the head coach there. And, and I see John in class, and he's a real quiet guy. And Josh White once says to me, he says, hey, that guy, John, I talked to him, and he's going to come by the gym sometime. He's an MMA fighter. And I said to Josh, so I didn't know he was a fighter. I just thought he just worked out because he was really quiet, didn't say much. And then over time, I got to know John, and he started to come over and train with us at Shidokan Atlanta. And then I remember being at, I guess it was center stage at some fights. And I can't remember who from our, we had a couple guys fight from our gym, and John was warming up, getting ready to go out and fight. As a matter of fact, I believe you were fighting for a title.
Yeah, I was defending my title against Akeem Bashir. Yeah.
So I'll let you tell about that a second. So, and then I was like, man, you're from judo, I'm like, yeah. And then, and that was the first time I saw John actually fight. And then over time, John started coming and working out with us, and we got to know him really well. Since then, I've seen him just grow incredibly fast in a short period of time. I mean, the guy works out every day. If you show him something, he goes and works on it. He goes and tries to absorb. He's very open-minded, and that's very rare today in martial arts. A lot of people, they become proficient at one thing or one area, and they just stick to that. But he truly loves the martial arts in that, like I said, I think he, like the way I see it, people say, what do you like best? I said, I just like everything. And I think John pretty much feels the same way. Yeah. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. John Vaughn. Thank you for joining us today, John.
Us.
So John, how did you get involved in the martial arts? First of all, where are you originally from? Tell us about where you're originally from.
Well, I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey. My parents met in Brooklyn, New York. They had my mom went to school in Jersey City. She went to high school there, and my dad had just left England. He used to play soccer in England.
Wow. And
he also went to college there. And he came over. He met with his sisters and his brother. They're all living in Brooklyn. And funny story, my dad's older sister used to teach my mother when they're in Barbados, when my mom was living in Barbados. So they had a kind of a rapport, but they didn't really know too much about each other.
Small world.
Yeah, small world. So when my dad came over, my dad fell in love with her, married her, and then they had me. I was born in Jersey.
So where's your dad originally from? He's
from a parish called St. Philip's, Barbados.
Okay.
Curtains. It's like a small little parish. He grew up there. He also he was born in Martyville, Barbados, which is it's a very beautiful small parish in Barbados. And they moved over. They bought a house and they moved to Curtains, Barbados. Yeah.
And is your mother from Barbados as well?
She was born in Trinidad, but her mother got divorced from my grandfather, and she went to America, and her mother was staying in right down the road from where my dad stays at, matter of fact, in Christchurch, Barbados. And they raised, and my great-grandmother raised my mother. So.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So you have roots in Barbados and
Trinidad, yes.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So your father ended up here. And like I said, when you came and you were born, so how did you? I know that you've lived, you lived in, on the West Coast. You lived all over the country. So where are the different places that you've lived here in the States?
Well, when I was born, we're back and forth from Jersey to Brooklyn because like family and stuff like that. Then my dad joined the Navy, so then we moved to Chicago when he was in boot camp. We went from Chicago to San Diego to San Francisco, San Francisco to what's it called? Presidio. It's a base called Presidio. They closed it down, I think, after my dad left there. But it was Presidio, which is like out between Oakland and San Francisco. Moved to Oakland. Then we went from Oakland to San Diego, and that's where I stayed for 12 years. I was there
Wow.
for 12 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so now, then, so you ended up, you're a Marine.
hmm
So how did you end up in the military?
I didn't do too well. I wasn't a school guy, so I was failing in school, but I played well in sports, and I was playing football. And one day my dad came to me. He was like, "Hey, boy, like you need to get your stuff together. You're not gonna be staying here once you turn 18." So I was like, all right. So he was like, "Okay." So he came to me one day. He was a doctor, so he was doing some blood work for one of the recruiter's daughters. And he came to me like later on that night. He's like, "Hey, I talked to the Marine recruiter." And I was like, "Okay." So he's like, "Oh, you're gonna meet with the Marine recruiter." So I was like, "All right." So I'm like, "All right, whatever, you know." And I guess like my dad somehow knew that throughout the years that one day I was gonna be in the Marines, and one day I was gonna go to war. So like a lot of the stuff that he taught me was kind of like geared towards preparing me for that, you know, I guess. So when I was a kid, like he had me playing soccer. I was real athletic, so he had me playing soccer. He was my coach. And one of the things about my dad was like even though you're a coach's son, you're not going to be the captain. And that was to teach me leadership, you know,
Right.
like you're going to have to fight your way and claw your way through. I'm not going to give you any special favors, nothing. And that taught me like to be tough and to like not take things personally and just to work, you know, like get a good work ethic. Before games, my dad would have me he would have me wake up early in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning. I would have this cereal brand to get me like my carbs up. And while I'm drinking this, he would have me watch Pele and Maradona.
Right.
You know, to get me into that rhythm, you know, of it's game time, you know, and you know, like, and then my dad also like like I said, he was a doctor, so he was and when he was in the Navy, he was a corpsman.
Yeah.
So they're like the medics for the Marines. And my dad, this is gonna be weird when I tell you this. My dad used to take me to the morgue as a field day at night. So he would take me to the morgue, and I'd see like dead bodies, dead parts, and he would teach me each body part and how it operates, and stuff like that. And he would have me read, like during the summer times, I wouldn't be out playing with the kids and stuff like that. I'd be reading, and my dad would have me in the room reading, and I would never want to read, so I would like draw. So that like my creativity, I started developing my creativity and my mind and stuff like that. And I remember one time he bought me a what do you call it? It's like a little play set, like where you can dissect it, frogs and stuff like that.
Right.
He bought me that, so I will work on that. I'll be on there like, you know, just like a what do you call it, the microscope. I'd take the little slide under the microscope and just looking at the stuff. I would go outside and I would catch spiders and flies and stuff like that, and I would put them in a little ecosystem, and I would just watch them and just like see how they operate and see how they grow and stuff like that. So
You remind me, I had a cousin, and you met my cousin Mike, and when he was a kid, he said, the first time I ever heard the word entomologist, and he said he wanted to be, and I was like, what is that? You know, but he was 7 years old, he would do the same thing, he'd always have jars of insects.
Yeah.
And when I got to share a story about dad being a coach. I played soccer, and my dad was the coach one season, and one lesson I learned from my dad, because I was a sore loser, and we lost the game, and I got mad and just stormed away. And I remember my dad making me walk back down to the field and shake everybody's hand.
Yeah.
So you said what sports you played? Soccer. What other sports?
I played soccer. I played soccer because my dad wanted me to, and I didn't really later develop. So I played soccer, basketball. I played, but I didn't play organized basketball. I used to play in the streets and stuff like that. And that was like a way for me to make friends and I guess to like stay like active and stuff like that. Then I played football. Now football was introduced to when I was playing soccer because some of the teammates of mine, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna play football." I was like, "What do you mean we're gonna play? We're already playing soccer." Like, no, we're gonna play American football. So I was like, "Okay, what is this?" And then the first thing, like they taught me how to learn to play it, and I was like, oh, this is football. I was like, okay, that's what's up. I like football. So I got into football, and I actually first started playing football when I was like organized when I was in high school, freshman year in high school. So I started playing, and I ain't too much like the coaches. So like they wanted me to go to class, and I was like, nah, I'm not going. Like I don't like this, like. So like the coach, my mom and the coach got together like, hey, we need to get this boy like, cause he can play. It's like, yo, we need to get this boy like active like in his class. Like, and my mom used to stick with me and like you need to go to class. You need to go to class. She'd even pop up at the school to try to get me to go to class. So, I mean, yeah. So football, soccer, basketball, and football is what I played in high school or played. Period. Yeah.
What did you like about football? Was it the hitting people? Was it the running? Was it the team aspect?
I tried offense, and I couldn't like catch for a lick. So, like I played defensive back. It's not like I like to hit people. I just like the physicality and the contact.
Right.
The hitting is you got to develop that, but the physicality of it and the toughness of it, and the simple fact that you're defending something is what drove me to defense. So that's what drove me to play football.
What do you think you carry into martial arts the most about football? Is it that physicality? Or?
That physicality and toughness and just the grit of like, getting the job done is what, yeah. And the work ethic, definitely the work ethic, yeah.
Now, with you being a military brat, moving, so you had to pretty much you moved a lot, and you had to constantly make new friends, and adjust to different environments.
Yeah, like I said, when I got to San Diego, I got there when I was 5, and then by that time my mom was pregnant, so she had my youngest, or the next kid, which is Amoy, not my daughter, but sorry, my sister. My sister, she was born right when we moved to San Diego. So, I made a lot of friends. Like, I had a lot of friends, like, and when I was in San Diego. Then, when I turned 16, then it was like I had to move to Washington State. My dad got stationed in Washington State, so we had to move up there. And it was just like a culture shock. So I was like, oh, man, here we go again. I'm like 16 years old, and I got to make new friends and stuff like that. But it all worked out for the best, But yeah, that was the hardest part about moving a lot, was just making new friends, having to make new friends all the time and stuff.
So so out of high school, you go to the Marines, and what was that like? Where do you go? Where did you do your basic training and that kind of thing? And how did you develop into the Marine?
Okay, so when so I remember leaving. Well, I was in Washington State, so I'm leaving, and I'm looking at my mom, and we're saying our goodbyes before the recruiter takes me down to the airport. And I'm looking at my mom, like, yo, she's crying. I'm like, yo, don't cry, you're gonna make me cry. So I'm like, all right, mom, like, I'll be back, like, I'll be all right. So I leave, and they take me to Seattle. So I go to Seattle, and I got to stay in this hotel, and we got to do all this medical work. So I'm nervous. I'm like, yo, like, what if they find something I'm messed up, and I got to go home? Like, I got to deal with my dad and stuff. So I'm like, all right, just calm down. All right. So then everything was good. So then I go down to the airport, and then we get flown to San Diego. So now I'm back home. So I'm like, oh, yeah, like, this is going to be cool. So we get to the airport, and then we have like a little staging area where we got to wait for the drill instructor recruiter, like, to come through and take us in to the MCRD, because the airport is right next to the boot camp, which is like I think they playing mind games with a lot of the recruits, because there you're looking at the airport, and then you got to look over, and then SeaWorld's right there, and that night they got the fireworks and stuff going. So this is okay, so we get we're all at the staging area, and then the drill instructor comes in, and we're like, oh, so it's about to get real. So we're all kind of like joking, like, oh, this ain't gonna be nothing. And they take us on the bus, and then they tell us to put our heads down, and I was like, oh, everybody's laughing and giggling. So I'm like, oh, this ain't gonna be nothing. So then the real drill instructors come through, and they get on the bus, like, get the F off our bus. And we're like, oh, shoot. So everybody that's joking around is like, oh, no. Like, you see them guys getting flung off the bus and they hitting pavement. And we got to step on the yellow footprints. And now it's like real. So I got to use the restroom now. I got to piss. So I'm just like, damn. So I was so nervous to say anything to the drill instructor to even ask, because I'm just seeing bodies just flying everywhere, you know, like, and I'm just like, oh man, I shouldn't say nothing. I should just hold it. Sure enough, I pissed myself. So now, like, dudes, the drill instructors are looking at me like, why didn't you actually go to the bathroom? And I was like, and they're like, go somewhere. So I'm like, all right. So I go do my thing. So the whole 12 to 13 hours, I had to stay and piss clothes and all this stuff like that. So I'm just like, damn. And we got to do our medicals. We got to do our like paperwork and stuff like that. So we didn't get no sleep. Like, we got there like nighttime. We didn't get no sleep. I don't think we even got to bed until about 6 o'clock that next day, like at the PM.
Ooh, Lord.
Yeah. So it was just nothing but yelling and screaming the whole way. That was an introduction.
Was it like that movie Full Metal Jacket?
Worse than that, because it was real. Like,
he said it was for real.
What was your MOS?
My MOS was 0311. That's a rifleman, infantry.
So you were the real deal.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, real deal. Like, everybody calls on us like we're the tip of the spear, they say. Like,
Oos.
Yeah.
Okay, is that where you got the mental toughness? Because every time I've seen you, you are unshakable emotionally. Before fights, you're just chill. Even when something intense is going on, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go out there, get it done. You know?
Yeah, but in my mind, sometimes with the fights, is like I'm trying to do the right thing. And that's where the Marine Corps stuff comes in. That's where I get my anxiousness from before the fight. So I'm trying to stay calm, but in my mind, it's like chaos. It's like, do the right thing. Make sure you got everything straight. You know, instead of just letting things be as it is. But, I mean, the Marine Corps, the mental toughness, yeah, because, I mean, boot camp wasn't even nothing until when I first got to the fleet. Because after I got to boot camp, I went to SOI, which is in San Diego. So I was around my family and stuff like that, you know. So I had like kind of like a emotional, like, you know, support.
Net.
Yeah. So when I got to my first duty station, like, I remember I'll never forget this. Like, I had a girlfriend at the time. So the day I got to my first duty station, she broke up with me. So now I'm heartbroken, and I got to go to my first duty station. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, here we go. So I get to my first duty station, and it's in 8th and 9th Marine Barracks, which is in D.C. So now I'm a ceremonial guard. So this is like, it's like you heard of the silent drill platoon?
I think so.
And the color guard and stuff like that?
That's one of the harder ones to get into, too, in D.C.,
Yes, it's
right?
hard
That's
to get
like
into.
An honor unit.
Yeah, it's hard to get into. You have to be a certain weight. You have to be a certain height. And, like, you have to be, like, on point. Like, I'm talking about because D.C. is, like, a very political place. And at any moment, anybody important can pop up. So everything needs to be spick-spat clean and all this stuff like that. I remember when I first got there, I got to my room, and like one of the platoons that I was supposed to get to, I wasn't in this platoon yet because I was still in school, but the platoon I was supposed to be in, they were on the deck, or the floor, and they were buffing the floor with the thing, with the what do you call it, the waxer. Yeah. So every day they got to wax, and they have to clean everything spick and span every day. And they look at me like, they're like, get the F off the floor. You know, you messing up the floor. I'm like, oh. So I'm like tiptoeing, trying to get to my room. Yeah. Like, you piece of, you know, they're calling me all kinds of things. I'm just like, all right, whatever. So then I finally get to that platoon, and it was nuts. Like, the stuff that they can make you do with an M1 rifle, because that's the rifle that we had. Mm-hmm. We had to drill with that rifle. And it's they can torch you with that. So we had to drill in the cold. Like, DC gets in the wintertime, it gets like probably negative 16 wind chill sometimes. It's real, and it's close to Anacostia, the ocean. So it gets real cold. Yeah.
Goes through your clothes.
And you got to drill in that stuff. You know, like, you're doing drills, and they're teaching us like the how to drill with the rifle and stuff, and it's just like we're in the cold like for 3-4 hours at a time, not moving. You got to stay still and stuff like that. It was torture, man. But then when the war kicked off, the Iraq War, they shipped us back to North Carolina,
Okay.
and that's when it got real because the unit that I went to, they had just got back from combat, and they had lost 18 Marines, and it was the same unit that Jessica Lynch, remember the Jessica Lynch story? The lady that got kidnapped and they gave her a Bronze Star? Yeah. So they're one of the ones that were involved in the effort to rescue her, recover her. Yeah. So that's where my mental toughness came from because a lot of those guys, it was like now it's for real. Like everything is for real, so it's for keeps now. So anything you gotta do to mess up anything, I mean, like I used to get in trouble in DC, like alcoholic incidents and stuff. I used to party a lot. I couldn't do that stuff in North Carolina because if anything happens, now it's not only on me, it's on the platoon, the team.
Right.
And I had to be on my stuff. So I made sure that everything that I was doing, like I was trying to make sure I did everything I was supposed to do,
Yes.
And then eventually I became a leader. Like they promoted me to a leader, and then when I went to Iraq, that's when I found out who I really what my potential was, like the compassion that I have for other people and the leader, like the stuff that my family and my mom and my dad taught me as a young kid. I saw that come out of me in combat, in live combat. So
Now you told me also now, and you actually got involved in martial arts while you were in the Corps.
Yes, sir.
So how did that? Where did you first see it, and how did you get involved in martial arts practice?
Oh, in boot camp. In boot camp, like the dojo is basically they put like some mulch that they put out on the grass.
Right.
They put that out there and they put it in a whole little pit.
Right.
And you are getting judo thrown and that stuff, and they doing all kinds of grappling in there. And I'm like, holy, like this is what it is. I was like, man, and you see like the black belts up on this little big thing, and he's like screaming and yelling at everybody, hey, now get in position, 1, 2, throw, boom, and you see a guy, and then the drill instructors are getting involved in throwing guys in their head and stuff like that. So I'm just like, this is cool. I like this.
So when you now what is the system? So you say black belt, so they have their own system. What is that?
When I was in, it was called MCMAP, Marine Corps Martial Arts. I think that they still call it that now. Yeah, but it goes through you start off as a tan belt, which is basically like a white belt. You go to gray belt, green belt, brown belt, and then black belt. Gotcha. And then the degrees, I think it goes up to 10 degrees in black belt.
Gotcha. And what are the techniques based on? Is it pretty much like a mixed martial arts approach?
Yeah, well, it is now because the mixed martial arts, it's because mixed martial arts is so popular now. Yes. They kind of merged a lot of that stuff. But before it was just like they took a little bit karate, they took a little bit of judo, they took a little bit of Krav Maga, and they just molded it into oh, this is our martial art.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, in the Marines, I know you guys still do the bayonet.
Yeah, fixed bayonets and stuff. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And because I don't think the Army no longer do it. I don't think do it.
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they.
I'll have to get an Army guy on to answer that, but I know that you guys, still do the and you beat basically beat each other up. You have the football helmet on or something.
Yeah,
with the sticks.
Yeah, that right there, that's what really got me into martial because I was. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
I was fucking people up in that shit.
So don't bayonet fight with him basically.
Because my drill instructor was a prick, and he didn't want to lose. He was one of them guys that he did not like losing. So anybody from his platoon lost, it was hell to pay when we got back. So I made sure that anytime I went up, I at least fuck somebody up in there, so I wouldn't have nothing to deal with when I got back to the berthing. So
Do they have katas or anything like that in that?
No, they're not. They don't have no katas. No.
Just pure combat.
Just strictly combat stuff.
Does it affect your rank or your progression in the military to have a? Okay.
Cause I know. Remember when I was getting out, they were talking about like you had to be in order to pick up a certain rank, you had to be a certain rank and belt and stuff like that. Yeah.
So did it affect your MOS? I heard you use a phrase called combat combative, or
Cause that's an army combative. Yeah, army calls it combatives, but they do. I know that. Okay, for me, I was a sergeant, so at least for a sergeant, you had to be at least a brown belt or above, and then to be a staff NCO, you had to be a black belt. Okay. You had to be a black belt to be a staff NCO.
Gotcha.
So most of the stuff is pretty easy. The testing is pretty easy, but I know for me, like when I was in, I didn't take it as seriously as I should have, like I do now. Like I was kind of like, I'm a good shooter, so like
you'll never drop a gun.
Yeah, so you know.
I'm wondering what type of dynamic it is when you know that your boss can beat you up because they're a black belt or something.
Oh. Yeah, but
So now coming out of I know you told me first of all, how'd you end up here in Atlanta?
Oh, my mom, when I was in Iraq, my mom had moved from Washington State to Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, so she got a house down here, and my sisters and brothers moved down, and that year my sister that was after me, Amoy, she graduated.
Okay.
So she went back to Washington State and she graduated with her class and then came back down here, and then she went into the Navy.
Okay.
Then my other sister Gabrielle and Timothy, which y'all know, they stayed here, and Timothy went to high school down here, and so did Gabrielle. And then I kind of like was, I guess like taking care, like not taking care of, I wouldn't want to say that, but I would help out and stuff like that.
You're the big brother.
Yeah, big brother, you know, like especially for Timothy, because he was young at that time and he was coming up, and I wanted to make sure that he was okay and everything was good with him. So I would kind of like peep in every now and then. And I would always, like I was stationed in North Carolina in 2007. So I would travel down to Atlanta a lot.
Gotcha.
You know, just to make sure everything was good. And then I would go back up to North Carolina. And then when I got out, I was with a girl, and she accidentally crashed my car. So now we were at odds and stuff. So I was like, you know what, F it. I'm going back. I'm going to Atlanta. So I went to Atlanta, and I never, like, when I came here, I just never really left. So I just kind of stuck around Atlanta, you know.
So it sounds like all your brothers and sisters were in the military, or just most of them?
Amoy, Timothy, Gabrielle, she ain't about no. She ain't trying to get in no military.
And were they all different branches? I know Tim was Army, right?
Nah, Timothy was in the Marines.
Oh, okay.
I told him to go into the Air Force, and he don't want to listen to me, so he was like, nah, I'm going to go ahead and be like
I want to
big
be
brother.
like you.
Yeah. Amoy, I was like, yo, like, just go ahead and go in the Navy, and because it'll just help her out. You know, just like when she gets out, she can.
There's a career set up for her.
Right. Because I didn't want him to take the route that I did, because I didn't really care. I just was like, yo, like, I just want to get out of the house, you know. So I'm gonna take the hardest thing I could possibly get. Them, I wanted to make sure that they were set up for success, because I already had, I guess, like, kind of like paved the way. I already knew the blueprint of how to get out. When you get out, like, set yourself up and stuff. I just want to make sure that they were okay.
So you're here in Atlanta, and then you started training. Was the first part you started training jiu-jitsu?
Yes, I started.
And,
Yes, sir.
Where did you train?
Alliance. I trained at Alliance under Jacare.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so from jiu-jitsu, what made you want to get involved in mixed martial arts? How did you end up going from jiu-jitsu to mixed martial arts?
Matter of fact, so I started off at BJJ at Alliance, and then I took a couple years hiatus because I had graduated college, and then I was doing some work and stuff like that, and I was back and forth from here to New York a lot. So when I finally settled back down here, I had got with Independence, where Joe Merritt was at Tara Boulevard. And I was kind of like just training, you know, I was doing jiu-jitsu with Byron Stone.
Okay.
And I was like, you know, I was looking over and all the MMA guys was doing their thing. I was like, let me check this out. So I'm just like checking it out. I'm like, do I think I could do that? I was like, you know what? Let me try it out. So one of the I think he's a pro fighter now, Yemi Alderweireld. Yeah, he was over there. So I used to work out with him and train with him. And then I started out. I was like, Joe Merritt was trying to get me a fight and stuff like that. And then like I think a few months later, the gym closed down. So then I took another year hiatus, and I went out to Colorado.
Okay.
And I was training under a guy named Drew Lawrence. And I was training with all kinds of, like, these guys are like pros, like these guys are high level pros. One of the guys they had up there was like the #1 ranked lightweight in Colorado. So I'm training with these guys and I'm hanging with them. So I'm like, I could do this. So I was like, you know what? I was like, hey, coach. I was like, yo, I'm 31. I was like, at the time I think I was 33. I was like, yo, I'm 33 years old. You think I can do this? And he was like, hell yeah, you can do this. What are you talking about? Like, he's like, matter of fact, like, you know, like, I'm gonna set you up. And I was like, all right. So, I had to deal with a case out here because I had gotten in trouble. So I had to deal with a case out here. So I had to come back, and I found out I couldn't go back. I couldn't leave the state because I was put on probation. So then I ran to my brother-in-law was like, yo, like you're an MMA fighter, man. I'm gonna find you something, you know. So he found this gym that was around the corner from where he was staying at, and there was a guy named what's his name? Tony Davis and Jason Everhart. They were local fighters, and they also were training fighters too. So I got on with them, and then they got me to, like, you know, where I was at as far as amateur, the amateur champion for 145 and stuff like that. So they got me to where I was at as an amateur. And then Jason Everhart had stopped coaching. And then, you know, and then that, like, between that time, that's when I met you at Leo's. I met you, Josh White, and Leo, and then actually Doug Ushers, who got me into Leo. Yeah,
That was there also.
yeah. So, yeah, that's how I got started in MMA, pretty much.
So once you end up becoming the NFC champ, and how did that come about? You end up becoming a champion, the NFC.
Oh, how did it come about?
Yes.
I mean, the grace of God, man, because a lot of stuff was going on at that time. Because I remember I had fought Johnny Williams the year prior.
Okay.
It was for a championship. I had only got 3 fights, and he had 11. So I had lost that fight. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to, so at that time I went to Unit 2. I was like, I'm going to train under Berto Chavin, and I'm going to get better on the ground, you know, because I'm always determined to get better, you know. Like, if I lose something or I lose a fight, I'm just like, you know what, I go to the drawing board, I'm like, you know, I need to get better here, and I start, like, trying to take my steps to get better. So I started training under Roberto Chavin. Then I found out my dad passed away.
Right.
So I had to take care of all the stuff for that and train. And then I went home. Back home to Barbados. I hadn't been back in years. I'm talking about like a couple of decades I hadn't been back. So I was like, you know what, took a trip back. And I saw how everybody was kind of like, oh, you fight. Like, I was going to like certain parties and stuff like that, hanging out, and guys were coming to me like, hey, you fight, right? I was like, yeah. I was like, how you know? Like, I'm watching you on social media. I was like, oh. So, and then I have a cousin out there that does martial arts too, and he was kind of like, send me some of your fight videos. So I sent him some of my fight videos, and he was looking, and he's like, you know what? This is where you need to work on. You need to work on that. You need to work on that. You're losing energy here. During this turn round, you're losing energy in that round. You're real good in the first round. And I was like, you know what? Like, it started to motivate me, you know? I was like, you know, because I'm the type of guy, like, I lead, like, I can motivate myself, but once I have the people around me that motivate me too, it makes me much more, like, you know, and I like to see, like, my people back home, like, look at me that certain way, you know. I was like, when I got back, I was, like, on a mission, and anybody they put in front of me was going to get it. So I remember I had to fight Rakeem Thorpe, and we had fought prior, and it was a controversial decision, and then now we had to fight again, and it was for the title. So I was like, yeah, we gonna get this. So I started training hard, every aspect of my game. I was like, I'm gonna try to get better, and I won that fight, and the next one was to defend it against Bashir, and then like I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna do this for my dad. I'm gonna start training heavier now. I'm gonna start training a lot more harder now. And then I ended up beating him. So.
How old were you at this time?
I was 35.
Okay.
Yeah,
So another
35.
person who says I have no excuses for starting.
That
seems to be
Get away
recurring.
from it.
Yeah, it seems to be a recurring theme around here.
So now, all right, so you, like I said, in addition to mixed martial arts, you started coming over, you started training karate,
Mm-hmm.
and you were doing a lot of kickboxing, and you also do judo.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, tell us about your first experience when you first started doing full contact karate, bare knuckle karate. What was that like?
When did I first start? It was the triathlon in Costa Rica, right?
Was that the first one?
Yeah.
Or was it
It was a triathlon in Costa
was
Rica.
that before we did the Oyama?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, yeah. So when I did that, like I kind of came in kind of cocky, I guess. I don't know, because I don't know, like I have fought MMA. I did the Bellator fight, the pro debut. So I'm just like, I got this. Like these guys ain't. And then I went down there and, I just didn't. Like I thought I had it in the first couple rounds, and then, like I just lost it. I just lost myself within the fight, and he won.
Right. But the guy you fought though, he was a veteran Thai boxer and
Yeah.
MMA fighter. So
Yeah.
it's not like you had a guy who been he was seasoned.
Yeah.
And he fought a very, very, very good fight.
Yeah.
Against this guy. And that was your first triathlon fight.
Yeah. And after that fight, I thought I got hit with a ton of bricks. Like, I was like, wow. Like, I remember that plane ride home, I was just like limping. I was just like, jeez, man. Like,
There's nothing like being on a plane when you have swollen, you have swelling.
yeah.
It's worse. Things throb, your circulation changes, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's not fun.
So how were the injuries different from your normal MMA fights?
It's different. It's on another level. Because like in an MMA fight, it's kind of, like you kind of take your time. And nobody's really kicking you a lot. And nobody's really punching you a lot. They're trying to take you down. And especially these days, most guys, they're trying to take you down. They're trying to ground and pound. So you're not going to get that beat up. These triathlons, it's like, whoo. Like, they're kicking you, they're punching you, and then you got to change arts within the fight. It's like, wow. So it kind of like makes you, because now when you go to other martial arts, or you now like when I fight MMA, it's like, this ain't nothing, man. I can, this like, MMA, at least I can take my time, and because you got to, like in the triathlons, you got to make something happen quick. And you're getting, and everything's coming at you, and then you got to change, and then like now you're going from karate to bare knuckle karate to kickboxing. Now you're kickboxing. Then you're done with that, and then now you go to MMA, and then it's like, oh, now you don't got the regular padding like with the MMA. You getting hit for real.
Right.
So it's like, dang. So it's like, okay, so we're here now. So now you grappling, and like you ground and pounding, and then you're done. And it's like, oh, okay, this ain't nothing. And then when everything starts to settle in, you're just like, geez, man, like my leg is hurting, like my ribs is hurting.
It's a lot of incidental contact. I mean, just everything is fast paced, and the rules are designed to where you have to give, and unfortunately you have to take a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have many early finishes in those fights, right? You've almost always gone all the rounds.
It's gone
Well,
the distance.
we haven't gotten to there yet. We haven't got there.
Oh.
And that, like I said, that was a six round fight against a seasoned fighter. We went to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, then you did bare knuckle. You fought in both the World Oyama tournament, and you fought at World Yoshikai. And just from watching those tournaments, it seemed as though you started to kind of become more comfortable and a lot more fluid in your fighting. Watching you, you know, within like a year and a half of doing a few different things, you know, I remember you finished the guy with a body kick at Yoshikai. So what was that experience like? What were those experiences like?
Well, when I had done the Yoshikai, I think I was pissed off that day. I was irritated about something. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this dude beat me, because I think I had just lost that fight with the MMA fight against the guy from SBG, and I was like I gotta do something. I cannot lose, man. I gotta learn, man. Like, and I started pushing myself, you know. In my head, I'm like, yo, I can't lose. Like, go out there and just do you. So with that, I was kind of like taking my time, seeing what he was gonna do, and then I feinted with the right kick. He flinched, and then I saw it, kick, boom, and then I saw him, and I was like, oh, I didn't know. After that, I saw that, I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, and then I heard you in the background like, get him, like, go, like, he's hurt, and I'm like, oh, I just lost my moment. So I kind of like calm down. And then I saw my other opening. Like, I was like, okay.
Right.
Saw a lot of openings. And then once I started laying the hands on him, I hit him one time.
Body shot, right.
Yeah. And
That was a beautiful KO. And people don't realize how difficult it is to get a KO and knockdown.
Oof.
To get a, you know, very, very good video. Now, let me ask you this. So, you know, you had the opportunity of working out with, you've worked out with pretty much, you know, all the top guys in Atlanta. I mean, you know, could you tell us some of the guys that you've had the opportunity to either roll with or spar with at various gyms?
I've got a chance to roll with Cabrinha. This was when I was really, really young in jiu-jitsu. And this is back in 2010. And, you know, Cabrinha is like a multiple world champion.
Right.
I've gotten a chance to train with Doug Usher. Gotten a chance to train with OSP, Derek Bronson.
And OSP is over in St.
Yes, over at St. Preux. Derek Bronson, Rafael Sunsao.
Yes, Raphael.
Mushin.
Sim Corbry.
Corbry, yeah. Manu.
Manu Ento.
Let me see who else. Got head kicked by what's his name? Duke Rufus.
Duke
They got that on video. Yeah, Duke Rufus. I got a chance to train with him. And Mike Graves.
Mike Graves. Okay.
Jared Gooden, trained with him a lot.
Jerry he just signed with the UFC.
Warren Thompson.
Warren Thompson. He's fought in pretty much everywhere. Warren.
Yeah.
He's fought everywhere. Yeah.
Wayne Barrett.
Glory. He won a middleweight tournament. Glory.
Yeah.
Kickboxing.
Diego Lima.
And Diego Lima. Yes. The Lima brothers. Right?
Yeah, the Lima brothers. That's pretty much it. I think Bevon Lewis. This is UFC. He's a UFC fighter now. Bevon Lewis, and I want to say I've done some wall work too with I forget his last name, but I forget his first. I think it's Martin Brown, or they call him Smash Brown, but
Gotcha.
I think he fights in Titan. I've done some wall work with him when I first started MMA.
And then you worked out a lot with Nate and.
Yes,
and
Nate
Robert.
Williams, Robert Hale, Clint Hester.
All right.
Yeah.
And would you say, like, you know, even though, you know, there's a lot of fighters here in Atlanta, would you say that the fight community is still kind of a small, is it closely knit? Like, most of the fighters work together, know each other. Is that common?
It's common. It's common to amateur because you don't really see a lot of guys a lot.
Right.
And then there's no money on the line, so nobody's really taking it that serious,
Gotcha.
you know. Pro level, when you're first starting out, it's kind of tough to do that because you're still in the local level,
Gotcha.
you know. But once you get to the regional level, it's a lot easier to train with guys in the state
Gotcha.
and get the work in. But
So now, speaking of regional, like, what was the organization when I believe it was your second pro fight when we went to Augusta.
Oh, Conflict.
Conflict. So and that's a regional. Is that where's Conflict?
Conflict,
based?
I think they're mostly out of South Carolina, but they have done some shows in Georgia, Augusta side of Georgia.
Okay.
I wouldn't. It's still a little bit local, but for me, it was regional because it still wasn't my home.
Gotcha.
I guess. Yeah. So it's still getting guys from the regional area
Yes.
to fight. Yeah.
So let's go to now. Your next international Shidokan event was in Tokyo, in Japan. You, Pat,
Moose.
Yes.
AJ
Yes.
Weathersby,
Yes.
and Jarrell Bowman
Yeah.
represented Team USA, and
Us.
you represented Team USA. And you went and you had, I guess, 3 incredible hard fights. Could you tell us what could you tell us about that? I know you fought your first fight. It was actually against Yuli from Belgium, and Yuli he was the first fight, correct?
No. The first fight was a guy from Mongolia.
Okay, it was a Mongolian. So tell us about that fight.
So, can I go like a little bit, like
Yes.
a couple? Okay,
Yes.
so I've been training for this fight. I've been training like almost 8 months for this,
Okay.
and I invested a lot of time. So when I went into there, my whole I guess I can sometimes be a pessimist because like I'll think negatively first, and
Right.
then kind of like when the positive kind of like flow with it. I was like, I do not want to lose this fight. Like, I put so much time into this. And you saw me, like, at that hotel. I was pacing back and forth, just like, yo, like, and that car ride, like, the energy and the tension in that car ride was so, like, crazy. Like, you could have heard a pin drop. Like, nobody was saying nothing. It was just tense. Like, and then when we get there, like, it was like a breath of fresh air to see you and AJ, because it was like, okay, like, now the team's here, like, let's go. And that walk up that stairs, that first fight, it was just like, oh, man, like, now everything's on the line. And I remember I went in there and, like, I'm just like, yo, like, okay, like, I'm going to work my stuff. I've been working for the last 8 months. I'm going to work my stuff. And then I just kind of, like, flowed, but I was still a little bit anxious.
Right.
I still had a lot of anxiety, so I was kind of like holding back a little bit. That second fight, I was like, I got it. Like I'm calm, I'm cool, and I was even in there like smiling and just like, like go ahead, hit me. I'm gonna hit you back. So like the third fight, it was just like, this is for all the marbles. Like I've come this far, and I'm not finna go down. Like you're gonna have to kill me. So. And then, like, when I finally got my hand raised for that fight, I was just like, okay, like, I'm good, all right, okay. And then I remember I asked you when I came back, I was like, what did I just do? Like.
So you just won the All Japan.
Yeah, like, I didn't know how major it was to do that, and.
Well, and especially for America, because over the years, like I can count on one hand that the U.S. has had American fighters go over to participate in the All Japan, and especially for our dojo. I mean, besides you guys, we had Ronda and Vinny. They went a few years back, and I went 1 year with a young lady from Chicago. 1 year she was by herself, so she was Team USA, right? And I think maybe back in the 90s they may have had maybe 1 or 2 guys from the U.S. to fight over in the All Japan. So to have 4 guys from the same dojo go and compete in the All Japan is
And all of us at least won one division.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and everybody did well, and I mean that was truly amazing for me to see. And so let's talk about preparation. You spent 8 months getting ready for that, and you train. I mean, you come to the dojo. You're doing karate. You're doing the kickboxing. You're doing jujitsu. So currently you do jujitsu with Rodrigo,
Yes, sir.
and you you go and work out with Josh and Leo.
Yes, sir.
Doing the judo.
Mhm.
So what was your training for that? The 8 months of training. What did you do to get ready for the Japan tournament?
I think around that time I was starting to teach the kids class with the Atlanta public school system.
Right.
So like the teaching the kids kind of helped me to hone in on techniques and stuff like that because I had to be on point to teach it to them. When I was done with that, I would go and I would come to the gym and I would train and do the karate. I'd do the sparring, the kickboxing, all that. And then when I was done with that, I would go to X3 up at Marietta and I would train with Rodrigo on the ground. And then like sometimes I'll see Jay up there. I'll get some working with his guys.
Right.
And then I was doing a lot of strength and conditioning on my own.
Right.
And I would run, you know, and then I would my recovery. Like I would get the percussor and I just like make sure I get the knots out. I would soak, you know, and then I would always make sure that I was eating right, like always eating healthy, not drinking any sodas, no alcohol, nothing but water and lean meats and rice and stuff like that. Just try to keep my diet on point.
Oh, you know, since you mentioned the kids, you remember a little while ago we had
Marco London.
Shidokan champ Marco London, and he said something, you just said it, and Marco London, he's from St. Martin, and he said that what will help make you a better fighter, believe it or not, is working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
He said that a lot of times he was training kids, and if you could figure out a way to teach and work with them and develop the, you know, number one, you have to have really good control if you're demonstrating a technique, but if you can get kids to do something, it helps improve your knowledge of what you're doing. And
Yes, sir.
I've looked on the videos of you working with the kids, and there's some incredible stuff.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, I just looked for the first time a couple of days ago, and I was like, you did some incredible stuff with the kids. The ladder, the agility, coordination drills, getting them doing the basic techniques.
Yes, sir.
That was really good work, and I'm sure because of the pandemic, you know, that's been put on hold. But I mean, you do an incredible job working with kids, and I can see him in the future, you know, really, you know, taking the martial arts to the youth.
Sensei John Vaughn.
Yes.
And it's funny because remember when I was getting promoted by Leo White to yellow belt in judo, like he said to me, he was like, one day you're going to be teaching. And I kind of like, when he said that, I kind of like, it confounded me because I was like, I never thought of myself as teaching anybody because I was more focused on myself. And it kind of took me back to like my time when I was in the Marines. Like I had to teach guys how to do certain things and stuff and make sure that, and I didn't take a lot of the stuff that I did there over to teaching those kids. It was just kind of like, because when I first started, I was kind of like, the anxiety started kicking, like, yo, man, these kids is crazy. Like, how am I going to get them under control? So I started to do, like, kind of like being more like a big brother. Like, I remember the time, like, being a big brother to my sisters and my brother, you know, and just teaching them the way, you know, like the martial arts way, like respect, you know, technique, you know, being respectful to others, doing unto, not doing martial arts to beat up somebody, but doing martial arts to be a better person, be a better human being. And I started, like, the funny thing about it is I started to see my blueprint or myself in them when I started teaching, which is very, like, it was scary for me because it was like, I don't want to do the wrong things around them, you know, like curse or, you know, like mess up a technique that they might, you know, learn and then, you know, like they mess it up. You know, I wanted to make sure that I was on point so that when I teach them that they're on point. And I started to see my blueprint of like the agility drills I was having them do was to better their kicks, get their legs right to better their kicks so that they can start getting more strength in their legs so they can start to kick. I was teaching the punching, like certain, even jiu-jitsu drills, you know, like rolling and back rolls and certain like submissions from, you know. And this is stuff that I remember when I was coming up as a kid that I didn't have at school.
Right.
You know, like they didn't teach that stuff. Like There was no way they were having a martial arts, especially the schools I went to. There was no way they were having a martial arts kid because they're not trying to keep having any of them kids up there beating up each other. Yeah. So, you know, and a lot of this stuff I credit to the dojo, you, Mr. Trammell, you know, like you, Pat, you know, like being around like y'all, and you know, you don't really find yourself until you hone in. You want to find yourself, and being at your dojo, sir, has allowed me to find myself again. You know, like, yes, and that's a major thing for me because you get lost, you know, in life, and you get lost in, you know, just the stuff that goes on in daily life, you know, like you get lost in, you need something to find yourself, you know. And that's what I try to pass it on to those kids. You know?
Now you I know you said your daughter also copies you in the dojo. So what is Miss Ava up to now? How old is your daughter now?
She is going to be 2, I think next week. Yeah, she's going to be 2 next week.
And she's still trying to copy you at home when you
train? Oh man. Like just the other day, she was punching, and me and my wife were just laughing because she's sitting there and she's kicking, you know, and she's kicking, she's punching. Like anytime I go in the garage and she's around the bags and stuff like that, she's just kicking and punching, and it's such a blessing to see that, you know, like that something that me and my wife passed on to this world as my daughter is doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. And, you know, as a father, it just makes me proud, you know, like that I see my daughter. I can see where she's going to go with this, you know, and if I teach her or if I allow her to do martial arts, you know, or if she does martial arts, which she probably will, right, I can see her going very far. I can see
right,
it.
and just from working with kids and seeing kids grow up in martial arts, I mean, at every level, whether they stay with it or not, every kid that I know that did, you know, martial arts for, you know, a considerable amount of time, even in their youth, if you see them years later as an adult, they will come back and tell you the positive influence that it had on their lives. Everyone that I know, and I know for every kid that has passed through our dojo over the years, you know, some that may not be there at present, but when I do see them at one point or another, the martial arts has positively influenced their lives.
Yes, sir.
And that's a wonderful thing to see. So everybody put your kids in martial arts.
Yes. Or your adults.
And your adults, right.
Yes.
Right. And your adults. Because, you know, the great thing about our dojo, like I said, you know, I know, you know, Pat was saying, you know.
Started at 32.
Yeah. But, you know, and we got Big John Reinhardt. You know, John is in his 60s. You know, we got, you know, Chuck is in his 50s. Mm-hmm. You know, we got guys in the 40s, 50s. Yeah. We have a young lady named Debbie Auerbach. I won't say any numbers. She's always 22 in my book.
Taps me every time.
Right. And, but it just, you know, the martial arts is good for everybody. And, you know, whether it be for competition, whether it be for fitness, but like as John said, you know, it's about self-improvement, about improving yourself and finding out more about yourself. And I think, you know, the reason, you know, these guys that compete is they're competing against themselves, trying to be better than they were prior to that moment that they're competing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to tell a little story, John. I'm sure when you had your Bellator fight, you came and watched my Yosekai tournament beforehand. I didn't know you that well. Maybe we'd only trained 3 or 4 times again. Yeah. You were this mystical figure because you're very quiet, but you're very strong and train very hard. And everyone was hubbubbing about you being a pro fighter and all that. Yeah. At that point, I didn't really feel like much of a martial artist. I felt more like a fanboy.
Oh, actually, I was the Augusta fight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Augusta fight, yeah.
And I fought, and I think I even won that particular fight.
Yeah. Right.
But I thank John for being there because it was like an honor to have him have such an important event in his life and him still come out to support me. You know, I was like, one day I hope to be a martial artist like you, John. And you're like, no, you're a killer. You go out there and all that. And at the time, I was very insecure about, I don't have that like warrior ferocity. You know what I mean? Like I'm a gentle guy.
Right.
I don't go like I'm gonna murder them or anything like that. And you told me like there's different ways to fight. That calmness can be your power. You can pick people apart with that and all that. That meant a lot to me. I was thinking about that because when I did the Copa tournament recently, I was really nervous, but I watched you do a similar tournament the year before, and you asked me if I was going to be fighting, and I told you I was going to be fighting in the year. So I hoped at that tournament.
Well, you know what? Let me add something to what you just said, because that was the Yoshiga tournament.
Yes.
So that day, like I said, he was fighting later on that day.
Yes.
So the Yoshiga tournament is, an hour west of Atlanta. And then Augusta is like, 50, almost an hour going east. He came, supported you guys at the tournament. Then we drove over to Augusta. Right? We spent all day at the karate tournament and then went all the way to Augusta for him to fight an MMA fight.
Not grumpy, super kind the whole time, very supportive. And you've always been that way. So every event I've ever been to, I appreciate it. I'm curious, I want to ask you some questions about your anxiety because I would never paint you that way.
Go ahead. You can ask me.
I just want to point out that, in Japan, I thought you were the calmest one of us. I was freaking out constantly. You were just sitting on your bed. Sometimes you'd even be asleep while we were all talking about things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're aware your anxiety doesn't present itself, or is that something you've, practiced so that you don't show it to your opponents, or?
Nah, I mean, everybody goes through it before. They call it nervousness. Me is just more I'm thinking negatively and trying to find the positives out of that. When I mentioned the Japan one, it was I just didn't want to lose because I didn't want to, nobody really wants to lose. And the guys that, they can deal with the losses, they pretty much come out on top. They just go out there and they put on a show and they do well. Me, I just don't want to look bad, and it's just and that in my mind, I'm battling the two wolves, the bad wolf and the good wolf, and whichever one you feed is the one that kind of takes over. And most of the time, I'm battling the bad wolf, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe you're too old, maybe you this and that, and then. I look at my daughter, the Japan especially is I look at my daughter, I'm just she is the perfect image of what a kid is. A kid, they're playing around, they're doing their thing in the crib, and no care in the world, they're just doing what they do, and I love to do this, so. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to give my all into it, and that's what I'm going to put out there. I'm an artist, so I'm going to put my art and my masterpiece out there for the world to see. And then that's when I'm okay, I'm good. And then I just sit there and just wait for my time. So.
And for kids, there is no, I can't do this. Kids just do, And speaking of art, you done some sculpting recently.
Yes. Like I said, when I was a kid, my dad would make me read, and my alternative was to draw. So I would draw, and I became very, very good at it. And I would paint too. And I lost that when I went to the Marines. You don't really do that much art that much. Well, if you do, it's more towards the commander trying to get him range, they call them range cards, giving them basically a sketch of what's going on out there, and he puts it off on his big board, But when I met Rodrigo, he got into the sculpting, so I was I used to be an artist, and I don't really tell nobody that, So I told him, and he was just you should try sculpting. I'm all right, I'll try it. So one of my drawings that I have, I tried to sculpt that, and I'm I could be pretty good at this, and tried it out, and I loved it, and it's one of those, people have a quiet passion that they have. Art's has always been a quiet passion for me,
So we'll have to get, and Rodrigo, I don't know if you know who Rodrigo is, and he's
I haven't met him yet.
He's like a Renaissance guy.
Yeah.
I mean? The guy's a phenomenal martial artist. He's the judo, Greco-Roman wrestler. I mean, like he was like on the national team for Brazil. He went to Olympic trials in judo for Brazil. He phenomenal grappler in jiu-jitsu and submission wrestling. He's worked with who's who in the fight game, and despite all that, you know, he's a sculptor. He's just went and presented a statue of
Helio Gracie.
Gracie.
Yes, in Miami.
To a gym down in Miami, right? In
Yes, sir.
Florida.
Yes, sir.
You know, he cooks. He does. You name it. This guy does everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So I gotta reach out to him and have him come and talk to us and share.
Bruce.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so John, you just recently did a tryout for an MMA organization. What was that organization?
It was a XFC.
And XFC is and they're looking for talent. And have they done shows here in Atlanta, or are they looking to do?
They did
shows?
one show a couple weeks ago in Atlanta. It was during the week, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay, and what was that like? You went and you guys had to do some grappling, and some kickboxing sparring, and what was that like?
It was actually pretty decent. But like I said, like you know, my anxiety usually kicks in. You know, so I was nervous in the beginning when I first got there, but once I started to kind of like get a feel for what was going on, like I was like when I was doing when we did the pad work, I was calm. You know,
Right.
like I felt great. When we did the what do you call it, the grappling
Yes.
portion, I was laughing, joking. This is nothing. It was like, okay, well, this is cool, you know, like all right, you know, flowing with it. And in the sparring, I was kind of like, okay, well, we're in here, so let's get it, you know. And I didn't even really look at the tape until I got home, and I sent it to you, and I sent it to I posted it. I didn't really look too much into it. And then when you said I did phenomenal, then I kind of like looked at what was going on. I was like, oh, I needed to work hard there. I need to do this. You know, like critiquing myself, you know.
Right.
So
we are our worst critics.
yeah. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll see what everybody else thinks when I come in on Monday. So then everybody's like, hey, man, you did really good. I was like, oh, thank you. You know.
You look sharp. You looked very comfortable. Like I would have assumed you were just doing like a clinic or an exhibition for the.
Yeah.
What you were teaching them, you're like, hey, let me show you some stuff. I didn't realize you were trying out for something until I looked, and I was like, oh wow, he's sharp, he's comfortable. Again, like you say you're anxious, and I know you are, and you're using that energy, but you would never know.
Yeah.
Right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was comfortable, and you know, like I just like I said, like just being a child, just loving what you do, you know, like having that childlike mind, even though I'm 38, you know, just having that childlike mind of just letting things be what it's gonna be, you know, just you know, that's what I did when I did those trials, and you know, I felt pretty good.
Yes.
Yes.
And speaking of so martial arts, and we were talking about you know, teaching kids. So you know, one day, is it possible that there might be a Shidokan Barbados?
I hope so. I hope so, man. Cause I wanna so bad. I wanna bring my energy and Shidokan to Barbados. You know, like that was always like when I came to the gym. That's one of the things I told you. I was like, man, like I want to bring this to Barbados. You know, cause that's where my heart's at. You know, like, and I want to, you know, like teach like my people. You know, like something.
Right.
You know, because it's not, like, I'll say this, like, there's not a lot of Bajans out there that that people know of that are really into martial arts like that. Like,
Right.
And if they are out there, they don't really, I guess, put it out there like that.
Right.
You know, and my family's real proud of me, you know, and I just wanted to, you know, just put us on the map, I guess, like, you know, like, we're here, you know.
Right. Right, and so you have a pretty big family. I mean, I went to one of his family's parties, and boy, they can party.
Yeah.
They can party.
Yeah,
You know?
it was crazy. Yeah, that's like, cause at that party you kind of saw my my crazy side, my crazy party side of me. Like I was a party animal, but I kind of keep it under control, you know. But yeah, I got a real big family, you know. Like my dad has a lot of family, which I don't think any. No, y'all haven't seen my dad's side of the family yet.
No. Now, you have one cousin who's in the military stationed over
In Japan.
Japan. Is he
Yes.
on your?
That's my mom's. That's on my mom's side.
Okay.
Most of the family that you met has been on my mom's side. My dad's side, a lot. Some of them live in Atlanta, but the majority of them are in Barbados or in England.
Okay.
And I have a few in Florida and New York.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But you know, like hopefully the December 19th, like I know one of my uncles is coming. My cousin you met is coming. That's my dad's cousin. And I think that's it.
And then who are the two funny guys that came to the fight?
Oh. Well, that's my mom's cousin, Hammer. They call him Hammer, and then that's his friend, Ricky.
Yeah, those guys, they're hilarious. They got the strong island accents, and they are hilarious.
You guys get on my nerves, but they're knuckleheads. But yeah, and that's why I say like having that childlike mind, like
right.
you know, just like that's why I try to be like, man, I'm too serious sometimes. So those are on my mom's side. Yeah.
You've even cornered for your little brother before.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was
the first time I ever knew you were nervous. I've seen you at a lot of events, but that was the first time like you're your new most serious self. You're giving him pointers, and you're like, man, I love my brother, and just gave me that look, and I was like, that's so sweet.
Yeah, like you know, like my brother, I'm 12 years older than him. So my mom, it's a funny story. My mom, when she was pregnant, she said that she wanted she wanted a boy and two girls. She wanted a boy first so that he can defend and take care of the two girls. And then she got that. And then I was like, there's too many girls in this house. I want a brother, you know? And then she got pregnant. She had my little brother. And that kid, man, I remember like, because now I have somebody, and I'm not double teamed now. Now I got somebody on my team where yeah, you know, like, and I used to make like I'm like when I was a kid, I was like the kind of kid that would like to tease people. Like I would tease my sisters and make them cry and be like, oh, laughing and giggling and stuff. And then like now I have my little brother, so now I can't get in trouble. So I'm like, hey, I'd send him behind enemy lines. Like, hey, go throw that at Gabriel or more. He go and throw the stuff at him, and then they start going after him. I'm like, yeah, I got him. Like, you know, but growing up, you know, like I said, like I was the oldest, so I was real protective of my brothers and sisters. So, like to see my brother out there, it kind of made me nervous because I was like, you know, like I'm the type of person, I'll walk the path and make sure that the landmines and stuff like that is clear, and then everybody else come behind. You know, like that's how I've always approached life with my family. So, like the blueprint for Timothy was to get him involved in it, but I didn't expect him to be like full brigade. You know, like I was like, man.
I didn't say compete. I just said just work out.
Just kind of feeling.
He took that on short notice, right? It was like a week, and then he was just like, "Let's do it."
And that tells you the testament to who he is, you know, and the testament of how we were raised. You know, like if you're gonna go all in, go all in. You know, like no half stepping, no, oh, I'm gonna do this, and no, I'm not. Nah, it's all in or nothing. You know, so.
I just wanted to give a subtle shout out to your brother. I like him a lot.
Timothy,
so, oost him.
Yeah,
seeing you fight was inspiring.
Yeah.
You were smiling, having a good time. The odds were stacked against you. He kept pushing, and then he saddled back up and kept going afterwards.
And then it's you know, like sometimes I'm hard on myself, but I can be hard on people I love. You know, like, and I remember that talk that I had with him afterwards. I was just like, yo, like. You got to train, man. If you're gonna do this, you have to train like hard. And then I remember Jay coming in like, "Oh, Timothy, you did a good job." Like, hey, you did a good job. Don't worry about John. He just talking. I'm like, maybe I just came and approached this the wrong way. Maybe I should have just been a little bit more
always want your if it's a sibling, you always
Yeah.
want them to, you always want better for them. And
Tim does have a shadow on him. When I sooner told people, but I'd be like, "That's John's little brother." People like, "That's John's little brother." And start I'll buck it up to him. But he supported me on every event I've ever thrown outside of the gym that I've invited him. So much love, just like you supported me on every event. So I have much love for the Vaughn family.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions you have, Sensei, before?
nothing I can think of. Yourself?
I'll hit you with the rapid fires I hit Vinny with. Favorite martial arts technique?
Favorite martial arts technique.
Could be a throw, a kick, a punch.
Harai Goshi is
Ooh.
my favorite martial arts technique.
Okay. Favorite action star?
Favorite action star, man.
Jim Kelly?
Man,
How about
that's
Bruce?
tough. Bruce Lee. Oh, I actually got a Bruce Lee shirt on.
Yeah, that's an easy.
Yeah.
You got two shirts on. You got Jack Johnson.
Yeah, Jack Johnson. Yeah. And Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. I guess
Bruce,
right.
Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I guess because my first martial arts film that I saw was actually my first martial arts film that I actually saw was Enter the Dragon.
That's a good one to start with.
Yeah.
Favorite martial arts to compete in? You've done MMA, you've done judo, jiu-jitsu. What's the favorite?
Karate, man. Like,
Ooh, it's karate guy.
I'm serious, man.
Is
Like
it the triathlon that you like? Was it?
everything, man. It taught me everything that I needed to know as far as cause I think like karate is the base and for martial arts, just because it opens up your mind as far as like martial arts.
It's funny you mention. I'm just bringing this up because it just hit my mind. If you look at we've talked before. When you look at martial arts in America, it pretty much came through military men who were stationed overseas in Okinawa, Korea, places like that, and it has to be something about the martial arts from Asia that there's something about the discipline, something about the focus that would make that would attract military men to the martial arts.
discipline.
Yes.
So
Yeah, because I remember me and you had talked about it, and I had told you like I didn't even know that so many African American martial artists that were war veterans came back and they started doing karate.
right.
Like when was it? Van Cleef? Van Cleef?
Ron Van Cleef, the
Ron
Black
Van Cleef.
Dragon. As a matter of fact, Black Dragon, Ron Van Cleef is the instructor of Timok from The Last Dragon.
Yes.
And he's one of the first, he's the first African American to become an actor in Hong Kong during the 70s for the Hong Kong Kung Fu, at its, that's when it was blowing up. And the Ron Van Cleef was the first,
Man. And it's such an honor. Like I feel blessed to even join those ranks of those guys that have gone to were veterans, war veterans, and then come back and then to go on and do greater things in not just martial arts, in karate.
Yes.
That right there makes me push me to even be much more of a better martial artist.
You also play video games, right?
Yes, I do.
Favorite video game character?
My favorite video game. Can I go with video game?
Yeah. So go video game first and then
what's
character.
the new one that came out with the Japan? I forget the name of it. Ghost of
Oh yeah, the samurai one.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Is that main character your favorite character as well? Or?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'll be more specific. Favorite fighting game character? Because I know you play Tekken and Mortal Kombat.
Oh, Ryu, man.
Ooze.
Ryu is my, and then it's funny because Ryu is what they made the character after Sueno.
Yes, Yoshiji Sueno.
Yeah, so hey, everything happens for a reason, man.
So
and
the
Ryu,
Shidokan founder, Ryu from Street Fighter is modeled after him. There's also an anime where he's the main character. They have Masuyama and then they have the second generation. And this is why they argue that the Street Fighter character is modeled after him. In that anime, his rival is a Thai boxer with an eye patch. So it's like Sagai.
yeah, who's a real character too. And a phenomenal fighter. So
okay, last question, most important one. favorite All Japan semi knockdown purple belt champion?
You.
2-1 now.
2-2. Thank you so much, John.
No
John.
problem, man.
Thank you so much for coming out
Us.
and joining us today.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. We may have a away podcast because we have people fighting.
Right.
Yep. So
it'll be interesting. We'll figure it out.
yeah, I think there's fights for like the next 2 or 3 weeks, right? Because there's this, and then there'll be
December
Kelly
11th.
Leo's.
Oh, that's
Okay.
next weekend. That's
Yeah,
next
yeah.
Saturday.
Ooh, that's next Saturday.
And the following weekend,
Yeah.
we have David Vo having his MMA.
Yes, I'm looking
debut
forward to
with the
that.
NFC.
So, Oos.
Us.